had just been making, a couple of years before, $3,000 a year as a teacher. But
this was in 70s.
no,
60s?
no, in the 60s, in the early 60s. Obviously, teachers make a heck of a lot more than that today, particularly in Burlington. But when you look at the cost, you could give me $1 million a year and then charge me $100,000 for a cup of coffee. I'm not in good shape. I still got $1 million, but I get 10 cups of coffee and that's it. I'm done. I don't have a place to sleep or anything of the sort.
Well, at that time, you were talking about when a cup of coffee costs 12 cents or 15 cents, and a house costs $12,500 or $13,000 in Lexington.
Okay,
I researched and found out, and I have friends who have bought houses in, for example, in Arlington, and now their house is worth a lot of money.
My house in 1970 cost $33,000.
That's still high.
It makes a difference.
Yes, it makes a difference.
That $33,000. When I had to write that down payment check.
Yes.
Oh,
of course.
It was scary.
But going back to what Margaret said, I mean, obviously, I certainly believe that the fact that the economy is doing very, very well right now, and that's reflective onto the current administration.
Yes.
But that's almost always been the case. Whatever administration, if their economy during their term is doing well, then that particular administration is already off to a great start. And it's very, very unusual, and I'm not sure that if an administration has a very good economy, that they're not going to be in trouble as far as re-election. I mean, I can't remember who said it, but I remember saying it's the economy's stupid.
Clinton said
right. And so it's, I mean, that's a big plus to get in there.
But again, the question is, who is the normal Joe really doing any better or even as well as he was doing 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 8 years ago?
I mean, there's so many measuring sticks on that. I mean, what I've heard is that the average person, whoever that average person is making $5,000 to $6,000 more a year.
Well, when?
Than they were prior to this administration.
Well, I'd like to see those numbers, because that's not what I'm hearing.
Well, that's what I've heard.
The problem with those numbers is that when you look at different states, it just is different. And also, you look at the family of 4 in Alabama, or in remote Texas, or in Tennessee, they're not making $50,000.
Yeah, and I'm sure there must be some information somewhere that breaks down all the different states. I have not seen that.
Or in Appalachia, for example, they're not doing well. But the thing is, in general, when you make an average Joe, it comes up like that. But when you look at it state by state, it's just different, and depending upon what the conditions are, as Bob pointed out. And so that is what I think is lost in that statistical presentations, because usually people talk about these average and forget about the outliers, the very rich and very poor.
But then we get, at the same time, we've got an employment rate that's down to 3.5.
Yes.
I mean, it's been like that for quite some time.
I mean, the good thing about that is that when you pointed it out, that when the administration, when you have unemployment rate very low, whether administration has anything to do with it or not, we have no idea, because a lot of times they're not. Well, the thing is,
we have some idea, because before Obama left his job as president, changes were beginning to occur for the better, and so we need to reflect that. One needs to be able to work together to make things happen that is logical for the whole country.
But what economists will tell you is that the unemployment or the economy goes in cycles. So usually there is an up cycle and a down cycle, and depends on which administration it is, and it hits them either up or it hits them down. So administration may have nothing to do with it, but of course there are some policies that the administration puts in place, and they claim. They have to claim it. And you have to give that credit to them. Whether it is Obama or Clinton or Trump, and as long as they are on that high side of the curve, everything is dandy. Why not?
And some of the other things, what have traditionally been decent paying jobs are becoming less and less. Some people claim that they're going off to China or India. Some people claim that it's something else. Basically, in large measure, having been involved in doing some of it, it's automation. These jobs are going away, and they're not going to come back. The ones who do have the jobs fixing things, etc., are probably doing pretty well. But there are even less and less of those jobs because automation makes it easier to fix things, or have the robots do the fixing, as the case may be.
I mean, that's what the discussion right now is in different various circles, is that we take healthcare workers for granted, that they are here. Now, what has happened is, as artificial intelligence is being introduced, and one field which is being hit is medical care. So now people are worried that are robots going to be the things, robots going to be the, I hate to say people, robots going to be the ones that are going to do the diagnosis. And right now already people are building algorithms where you don't have to go to the doctor. You just sit in front of your iPhone or phone and punch some numbers and your diagnosis comes back. So what are you going to do? That means those jobs are threatened already. And the same thing is going to happen actually in truck drivers, taxi people, and bus drivers. And what are you going to do about it?
Go to McDonald's. There are less people in McDonald's than used to be, because you now can order through a little app. And it will come to you. The cooking of the food is the thing that really surprises me. They haven't automated already.
No, they've done some automation, not necessarily McDonald's, but there are companies.
Right. But I mean, that's really simple. Anything that is rote, that you take something from here, do a defined thing, and then put it over here, that's automatically a target for automation. So jobs are going to go away.
But that's always happened in all of mankind. You know, womankind. You know, you used to have the horse and buggies, and people were worried what's going to happen to the people that took care of the horse and buggies. And the cars came along, and it's the evolution of different things changing, and it depends upon how society can adapt to it.
Well, the poor SOB who did the horse and buggy, who fixed the wheels, etc., he lost his job, and very likely he never found another one.
Very possible. And
so that's what's happening now.
Yeah, but that's going to always, you're not going to be able to stop that from that kind of evolution of things happening. And you have to, if you get caught in that spot where your job is being eliminated, you have to adapt. You have to. My father-in-law, who passed away in his 90s, he worked in a furniture factory out in central Massachusetts, which was big up back in the 50s. And he couldn't find a job in that area, and so he ended up taking, back in those days, as in the 50s, a home course study to learn how to do things. And I can't remember exactly what the topic was, but he took one of these home study courses and had to mail it in and get it back. And and he ended up getting a job to work for I want to say Raytheon's. Up here in Andover. And he traveled every day from Gardner, Massachusetts to Andover. And this is before 495 was there. And so, he not only did it by himself, he did it with 4 other guys. And he did this for 10 years, driving from there to there, because my wife, as a younger child, didn't want to move.
Of course.
And so he did that until we got married, and then they moved up that way. But he had to have a certain desire not to be left behind. And so he adapted. And And that's what somebody you have to be willing to do that kind of stuff.
Now, this is great actually that he retrained.
Right.
But what the problem comes up when the politicians use that and promise people we'll get those jobs back. Now they know in the core of their heart that those jobs are not coming back, and so they give false hope to people, and that's where I find kind of not good. But the politicians, as I said earlier, also. Votes are not given on intellectual basis. They're given on emotions. And so if you promise me something, of course I'm going to vote for you. So whether I don't think whether you are going to be able to do it or not, you said you will, well, you got my vote. Why not?
Particularly if you can blame somebody else for the reason it didn't happen.
I mean, that's how it
I
works.
I tried to build that mountain all the way up to the moon, and
Bob tackled it down.
Right,
and something happened.
Yeah, Bob Creed was the one who kept digging away at it, and it didn't happen. So get rid of him, and we'll get it next time.
I mean, there are more. I believe there are more job opportunities now.
Yeah.
But it requires somebody to get off the backside and get out there and do some things. And I think if somebody isn't willing to do that, and they just bemoan their situation, then that's their fault.
That's what. Now you are really providing a very important nugget there. That is their fault. But the problem is you can't go out and tell everybody that it's your fault. You suffer, but you can't make them suffer. So as a society, what are we going to do? Either we have a retraining programs en masse, or provide some kind of a succor to them, and I don't know what.
No, I agree that there has to be some opportunities for them to get retraining, whether it's at some type of college basis or some other trade schools. I just read earlier today, I think, that the number of people going into colleges has fallen for like the 8th straight year.
Fallen for the 8th straight year.
Yes,
that's unusual.
Well, it's not reported as much because I don't know why, and I'm not sure I ended up reading the whole story, but I'm not surprised because I think most colleges don't want to face that issue that maybe their enrollment is. I mean, there's been a few smaller colleges in New England that have closed up in the last few years. But there's an increase in people going into the trades, and that's a good turn in that direction.
The problem is that the trades, from back in the beginning of history, have been a closed environment. The guilds, going back to the Middle Ages, etc., in order to keep people to keep wages up, to keep they've limited the number of people who can get in. And as long, again, being selfish, as long as the guy who comes to my door and fixes my plumbing knows what the hell he's doing, that's fine by me. I'll pay a few extra dollars, but at least it'll be done. If anybody could be a plumber, then I don't have that assurance.
I mean, that's what I said, that we, as a society, we have to have a retraining program which is certified. You can't have anybody off the street come in and say, I will fix your electrical circuits tomorrow. You need somebody with an assurance that there is something behind the person.
But you have two problems. Number one, you have to have an opening. You have to have a need for that. And two, the person's got to have some talent. I guarantee you, you train me all you want. You don't want me fixing your wiring. I just don't have the talent for it.
Well, that's why, that's what people talk about. You should, well, it's easy to say that. What I'm going to say is easy to say. People say that you should go into a trade that you like.
Yes.
But the problem with that saying is that sometimes there is no choice.
You go where the job is.
Actually, a lot of time there's no choice. A lot of time it is because you gotta have a job, you gotta feed the family, and what are you going to do? You gotta do what is available, and you train accordingly. And whether you like it or not, that's why there is a TV show, The Terrible Jobs or something. I forgot what its name is. terrible jobs which people do or something like
I
that.
never
That
heard of
was
it.
Mike Rowe's program.
Yes, yeah, he goes into places where they dig up, not dig up, collect cow poo and make house plant planters out of that. But somebody got to get into the cow dung and do all kinds of things and manipulate the machinery, and that's a dirty job. Dirty job. But the thing is, there are people who do that.
You're saying that people go into jobs now not because they like it, but
Because they got to eat.
Because they got to eat.
Cannot eat.
Yes, I mean that's the primal instinct of a person, that you got to eat. And but the thing is, we tell people, well, you should go into jobs that you like. Well, maybe sometimes there is no choice. Well, you got to eat. What are you going to do?
Yes,
how many people do you know who, either working now or in the past, worked at something that they hated? The idea of getting up every morning and doing whatever was necessary, even if they didn't have a 2-hour commute or whatever the hell it is. They hated the whole concept of it, but you do what you got to do.
Well, I went into nursing because I liked the concept. It wasn't so much that I was thinking of money at the time. It was something that I really wanted to do. And I am glad that I really got through nursing because it was just wonderful for me to work directly with our veterans and really give nursing. And so I feel really pleased and retired in a very good sense because it was a profession that I really wanted to go in life.
But there again, you have to recognize not everybody can become a nurse, because there is, in order to become a nurse, you have to have that thing in your.
Well, you have to have the education.
Yeah. Well, education is second. First, you have to have that mindset to be able to serve. To not only able,
a
willingness to serve. Because this is what I tell my students too. You will become a nurse, and you have to be of that mindset. People are going to take their clothes off in front of you. You have to, if you don't have it right now, you better go the other way, because you will become part of the most trusted profession in the world. And if you can't handle that, maybe this is not the right place. I mean, that's a special thing. But on the other hand, there are jobs which people go to. They may not, but they will adapt because they got to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of, going back to what Bob said, as far as people hating their job, I think many people look at whatever they're doing as things are rosier on the other side, and so they think it's better if they do something, if they had the other opportunity, and so I certainly agree that many people who may have done or do stuff that they don't enjoy doing and wish they could do something else.
Right.
But I'm not sure that it's the majority of people.
I question that. I know I was lucky. I got out of college. I had no idea what I was going to do, none whatsoever. I was a computer science major. Other than art history, there's probably nothing less useful in terms of earning a living. And I came back to Massachusetts, and my parents happened to be living at the time. And my mother said, "Why don't you go down and talk to this job counselor?" And I talked to him. I didn't know anything about it. And he said, "What about computers?" And I said, "What is a computer?" Literally. I had no idea. I'd never seen one. I never even heard of one. This was in 1965. And suddenly everybody wanted a programmer to begin to automate things. I fell into it. Turns out I loved it.
Yes.
I had so much fun. And then as I got a little bit older and a little more mature, I started dealing with the clients, dealing with the people who actually had the problem. And that was even more fun. So my career, had a great time.
Yes.
I know very few people who could say the same thing. And even I had a couple of jobs or a couple of assignments that I despised. But
I mean, that's by and large the same thing. For example, I feel lucky that I'm teaching, because my students used to come into the lab and I would we would do research, and a lot of them used to say, "Why don't you teach?" And I said, "Well, maybe I should teach." So that's how I got into all that. But as again, I still say that although we say that you should do the job which you love, but not everybody loves the job they do. But because they gotta eat. But
I think we're very fortunate that you were a nurse, because
Yes.
you sound like, I'm sure you were an excellent nurse, and nurses have to be one of the highest levels of respect
Yes.
that anybody has for anything. I think I don't know, can't think of too many other professions I would have more respect for. But
the normal guy, and some people with very responsible jobs, very high prestige jobs, don't like what they're doing. And so the point being, you do what you got to do to eat. And sometimes you get lucky and things work out and you actually enjoy what you're doing. But the poor schlub who, the widget is the thing they used to use to control the mast on a ship. When they stopped using those things, or damn few of them, he was a very highly skilled guy who had no place to go. The people in Lowell, I don't know if you've ever taken the tour of the
mills.
The mills up there. Fascinating thing. But when those mills moved south, why? Because they had to the mill that they had was getting old, and they had to do a new one, and they started looking at how can I maximize for the investment I'm going to make, how can I get the most return? At the time, it was moved down to South Carolina. Then they moved down to South Carolina and they went overseas. And we could feel real bad, but think about the poor guy in London or Manchester or wherever in England whose job manufacturing cloth and clothing came to Massachusetts and various places like that. It's always moved. We sort of started this discussion talking about maybe some of the good things that Trump did, tax cuts being one of them. And we talk about, well, if manufacturers, if you cut their taxes, they'll have more money to invest. And it's probably true. And some of the, not all of them, but some of the manufacturers are actually doing that. Well, what are they doing? They're investing in upgrading their equipment, their plants, etc., in large measure by automating them. What the point of automation is to reduce the human factor, reduce the guy who's actually working. And so even the good things aren't helping the people who supposedly are going to be benefited by this. I know for a fact, because I did it, this was a number of years ago, about 20 some odd years ago, maybe 30, 25, London, Ontario, they had a Kellogg's cereal plant. We automated that plant. Instead of a couple hundred workers, it was down to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40.
Wow. They must have hated you. They had no idea that you
we
did it.
We flew in, we flew out.
Oh.
By the time they realized what had happened, we were long gone, never to return.
Wow.
But this is what we have to be aware of, and a topic for another show. What happens when nobody has a job? Do we all curl up and die, or do we find something else to make ourselves valuable?
That is actually, you're really correct. That is really another show, but it has been topic of discussion for a few years now. What happens when? What is you also pointed out so many times. What is the worth of an individual with no job? when there are no jobs available. And connected to that, that's what I was saying, that it might be better for all these Democrats. They have spent more than close to $350 million in advertisements. And that's what I was suggesting the other day. Instead of spending all that money, why don't they give $1 million to each of the people individuals in the United States and be done with it? And then they could say, well, we have this candidate and we vote for him or not. That's a different thing. But at least we each will have $1 million.
But
and that
number
way,
one, there's 300 million people.
Yes, but
and even Bloomberg doesn't have 300 million dollars.
But they have in total, they have spent more than $350 million.
Two guys.
No.
Two guys.
All people.
Bloomberg and Steyer have spent,
well, maybe $50 million by now.
probably 95% of all the money that's been spent.
But I was actually calculating.
Yeah.
All the candidates together, they have spent about $350 or some million.
And if you look at Steyer and
Well,
Bloomberg,
that's the major one.
that's almost all of it.
Yes. That's true. When you will look at that, actually, somewhere I saw the graph. Actually,
It was in MSNBC.
Yeah, I saw the graph
Meadow
somewhere.
had the thing.
Yes,
It was,
yes. So that's why I thought.
Election will go on forever because it really started soon. And
the Republicans 4 years ago went through exactly the same process.
It is the same thing all the time, every time. It's not just this one.
Well, but it's just going on, and it talks about the applicants' wealth and that sort of thing. People have some idea over the years of the groups that put themselves up for election. People generally have some idea who they will probably vote for because they have followed these people for a while and know how they are and how they present themselves. So I know the election will go on forever, but I just wish that it is respectful of each other and we really don't get into all this hurtful sort of thing.
That's going to come because people want something and you want it badly enough, and suddenly somebody's going to take it away from you, or you're afraid somebody's going to take it away from you, and you fight.
Well, actually, this is interesting about when there was this Democratic debate. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched. There was a clip. Somebody had recorded what Warren and Bernie Sanders' conversation was after the debate.
Right. Well, it was a hot mic that was on.
That was a hot mic, and I said, "Wow, look at that! That's really." And you don't want them to fight, and that's what happened. That she wanted it right then. She wanted the blood, but Bernie Sanders said, "Well, we go off the platform," and I don't know what they discussed later.
I saw both of them interviewed today.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay.
And they said, "Did you get together?" And said both of them said separately, "No, we haven't talked together at all."
But looked like at that time there was.
Because she didn't shake his hand.
No, but she said these things. You lied. You
called me a liar
on national television, and immediately Bernie Sanders started saying something that we talked later or something, and this Steyer guy showed up in the middle, and that ended it.
Yeah, he said he was just there to shake Sanders' hand. So he
and maybe he saw what was happening and said, "This is not good for anybody."
Yeah, so maybe that's
and you need people like that.
Well, I saw this morning or the next day or something. I saw Van Jones. He's
Who's Van Jones?
Democratic. He was in the Obama administration.
Okay.
He's a black man, very well spoken. But he said that the debate was a disaster.
Of course.
And he doesn't see any of those.
Why
doesn't he see any of the candidates being able to beat Trump?
Is that right?
And then there was another person on who also is a high-ranking person in the Democratic field, saying the same thing on the same program, saying that if they don't get their act together, they're not going anywhere.
I mean, when you look at all these people, I don't think they're going to get their act together. That's the unfortunate thing. And what I find more a disaster that Bloomberg walked in too late in the game, but according to you, it's a better plan. Maybe he's going to
a retail politician.
Maybe he will come up winning. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting because I don't see these people doing anything good at the moment. But maybe I'm more a skeptic than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, they're fighting. Remember 4 years ago, Trump was picking people out of the crowd, and he was trashing them like crazy and throwing money, etc. And basically, they folded. Hillary didn't fold, oddly enough.
But at the same time, you have to see that Trump did what he was doing, and I think he was reflecting what the mood of a certain section of the population was. And that's why he was able to survive.
Yeah, he and Steve Bannon.
Yes.
Well, Steve Bannon did the research and said
he did the strategy.
There is a number of people who, if you blame, we'll pick some people, Muslims, whatever. If you blame those, they will say, "Fine, that's what I think too. I'll support you."
Well, that might be part of it, but
but he also had help from the outside. Not only did, forget the Russians for the moment, the very nature of this email thing.
The WikiLeaks and the email.
Well, that is what he basically was able, and the Republicans have been doing this for, well, since certainly Bush the Elder. Trash the other guy, make the other guy unacceptable, and then your people will always support you, and that'll be enough to survive.
Well, I think trash the other guy is a normal, well, I shouldn't say normal. It has, from the very beginning of the country, it has been there. Although at that time, you didn't have Paul Revere's messages going around that fast as they are going right now. But at that time, you read about all the, what the Hamiltons and the Quincy Adams, all those people were doing what they were saying during that time.
Well, remember Hamilton and Quincy.
That's why I gave the different examples. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is, it's not new as far as I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's tradition. Even in the American Revolution, a good percentage of the population didn't want the revolution, were against it, supported the British troops, etc., financially and otherwise. Nobody agrees on any one thing.
I mean, at the same time, we think about Lincoln as a great guy, and he was a great guy, but at the same time, when you read the whole story behind, it's a kind of wonder. It's a kind of not only strange, but also wonderful to read all that. But then you come up with the thing that nothing is clean. It's kind of mixed bag all the time. So you got to pick. And you got to pick. And so you pick something.
You have to pick. I hate extremes. If it hasn't been clear in the past 15 years, let me make it absolute. I hate extremes. You do the best you can.
That's it.
It won't be perfect. If you're making progress towards your goal, that's the most you can hope for. Because there's somebody else whose goal is totally different, who's also trying to make progress, and at some point you're going to butt heads.
Have you given any thoughts to what your goals are until the election is over? What will your goals be?
My personal goals?
Yes, and election goals, any of the goals that you decided on coming up to the election.
I only goal I have is to do whatever I can in my limited capacity to support Trump. and anybody else that's on that side of the issues. I mean, I want to go back for a second on what you said in reference to Hillary, and talking about Trump trashing people. I think Hillary lost, a lot of people when she started referring to people in the central part of the country, the middle part of the country, particularly, as deplorables, a basket full of deplorables.
That was one of those quotes people quoted all the time.
Yeah, and why not? That was a quote that was very damaging to her.
Yes.
And her.
By the way, I agree with you. I also would say that Trump was doing the same kind of thing, and has been doing it for about 10 years.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that's well publicized.
Right.
But the fact is, it's not as well publicized or reminding people that Hillary did her share of things too. And so that's all I'm saying.
I agree with you. And actually, we started this discussion even before the cameras went on, when I was trying to be fair to Trump about what he's accomplished. I was thinking of two things. One was the tax cut for the wealthy and who benefits, but I suddenly found that I might be able to do my taxes on paper and not have to buy a computer program to do it, because all the complicated things have been eliminated. The other thing that I was wondering about was the China deal that was just signed. And I'm reading about it, it looks like, at least in the reports that are coming out of Washington, well, he got something. He got $200 billion more stuff that they're going to buy from the United States, etc. But what I haven't heard, and before I can evaluate how good a job he did, was what did China get?
Well, it's going to take a while to evaluate how all of this is going to work.
Well, we know what America got. Hey, isn't this wonderful? What did China get?
I think that's all broken down there. I don't know for sure what it is either.
We're looking. I actually was Googling this afternoon trying to figure out what did America agree to do. They're not going to put on the extra tariffs. They're not going to...
Well, they're still maintaining a lot of tariffs.
Right.
Are still there.
So why did China do it?
Well, they're going to. Well, looks like the Chinese are going to import a lot more agricultural products, and at the same time,
some manufactured products.
And manufactured products, and at the same time, Chinese are going to limit their scavenging of the intellectual property.
Okay.
And but the thing is, as Chuck pointed out, that we have to. It will need a lot more time to really be evaluated and be monitored. I don't know how they're going to do all that, but in the meantime, the rush will be to go to phase 2, because that will be before the election. Something has to be done big, because right now they did a small thing. Right now, phase 1, it's not big, because this is just to show that they are advancing, but I don't know whether they will advance that fast.
Do this. Your mic is on.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Apologies. But again, we have this big announcement about all the wonderful things that the U.S. has gotten out of this deal. And I agree. When are we going to find out what it costs? Nothing's free in this world. And sometimes we'll find out, Trump will be talking to Russia or the Russians, etc., and we'll hear wonderful things, and then the Russians will announce their view of what happened. And it's not as good. So when you're buying something, one of the key things you need to know is, what does it cost?
That'll all come out in time.
Will it come out in time to make a proper evaluation, or will we hear about all the wonderful things? The pig and the poke. See,
well, that's what you're going to
see that thing moving? That is great. That is a wonderful pig. That's a wonderful pig. Vote for me. Okay, you gave me the vote. You gave me your money. Okay, here's the pig and the poke. Oh, it's a chicken.
Okay, so the economy has improved, regardless of the economy has improved. However, you want to recognize to what degree it has improved. The other aspect, in my opinion, the military situation that we have in this country is improved. and we're much stronger than we were 5 years ago, and militarily.
Explain what you mean by stronger militarily.
We have a very stronger military. I can't get into all the details. That's what was I. But the fact is, I think from a policing point of view, I think the police in this country are much more respected. They are since under the Trump administration than they were before. And it'd be hard pressed for me to be able to be seeing numbers of police who are anti-Trump. I think the majority of them are very supportive. I think the immigration situation has been improved. The border is, however you feel about it, I think his decision to try to enforce border control has improved. I think his venture to say that he was going to get more conservative judges on the courts and follow the Constitution more has been happen. He's got the 2 Supreme Court judges, but he's also got about 180 other court judges throughout the country that are going to be there for some of them 40 or 50 years. And
those judges take on a certain amount of citizens here in this country. And so if the judges are not interested in working or seeing blacks as they are, then they will be a problem for the black citizen.
I'm not sure what I understand what you're implying.
I'm implying that he is putting on a lot, they call it conservative judges. And that is, in some ways, bring up things that make people discriminate against each other.
I would not, personally, I would not interpret as being a conservative that's slighting people from what their constitutional privileges are within the country. I can't remember her last name. First name is Candace. She's a young black woman, probably in her early 30s. She's I see her often on programs, and she's got her own organization, and large, what I think is a fairly significant number of younger black people who are very supportive of Trump. And predictions are, I read it earlier today, that they're saying that the black population, about 30% will vote for Trump this time around.
Who said that?
I'm sorry?
I said, who said that?
I'll give you that information. I can't remember who specifically said that, but I'd be disappointed if it doesn't come out pretty close. Some people are saying, no, that's not going to happen. Trump got 8% last time. And
he will probably get less.
You think he'll get less?
I'm
hopeful that he'll get the 25 to 30.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add to that is that what has been actually propagated a lot is that Democrats have taken blacks for granted, and it has been brought on the news as a news item so many times by various pundits on the TV, and it's being taken for granted that maybe it is true. So if I'm a black person and I think that maybe that is true, I probably will vote for Trump, because Trump would do things for me if actually Democrats have taken me for granted. Now that is what the blacks for Trump, they have made that pill for the rest of the blacks to swallow.
And have we heard any black for Trump talking?
Yeah, that's
I can give you a list.
That is actually
very
true.
Significant, what I think is a fairly impressive list of names of very well-respected people throughout the country who are relatively very prominent people. One fellow that writes for the Wall Street Journal, he's advocating every day. I draw a blank for some of the names right now, but there are a good number of people, and it goes along with what you're saying.
Yes, I mean I also don't remember the names. I have also watched the people, and I have also I don't remember the names, unfortunately. And there is an Asian woman too. She's like a firebrand. And we have an Indian guy who is a firebrand.
Dinesh D'Souza.
Dinesh D'Souza, and you have to listen to him, and he's very intelligent. I mean,
he's what?
He's very intelligent, actually.
Oh, yes.
And you can't argue against what, but then you listen to it carefully and say, those facts are really factoids, but he convinces you completely. And so, but
he convinced you?
No, I'm not saying me. I'm saying he convinces you for the moment, but then when you go through the facts, so-called facts, he tells you. He has produced documentaries, he has written books, and then when you listen to him, it seems, well, it's correct. Then when you kind of parse all the words he says, you kind of begin to think about, well, you know what? Let me think a little bit.
Well, I would gladly sit down with you and talk in reference with you about that particular individual.
I mean,
I've seen him appear many times.
Yes, he is amazing. It's amazing. I really give him that.
I didn't catch the name.
Dinesh
D'Souza.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of another guy
from India.
Yeah,
he went to school in Dartmouth.
Yes.
There was a guy who was running for Senate in Massachusetts.
No, that guy is
Shiva.
Shiva.
Yeah.
Was he a Republican? Is he a Republican?
Definitely a Republican. I had a interaction with him. We were yelling at each other outside of a Stop and Shop for about 15 minutes.
I mean, that guy's moniker he created for himself, I don't like that. Whatever that was. He was more Indian than Warren or something like that.
He said, vote for a real Indian, not a fake Indian.
Yeah, I thought
that was the basis on which he and I got into the argument.
I mean, that was too corny, even for me to read it. Although people say that I can't go there.
No, I said, we had a long debate, and I still get occasional emails, not personal emails, but publicity.
But in contrast to him, D'Souza is really high up there.
Okay, I haven't seen him.
He has a lot of. He goes to he goes to university campuses and gives lectures.
Oh yeah, and he takes those students right on. And
yeah, I mean, he is just. He has facts and historical things on his fingertips, on his tip of the tongue.
It sounds like I've never heard this guy, but
He's
I have
YouTube.
heard Bill Clinton, and that's exactly how Bill Clinton is. He's a very folksy thing, and he knows. And there are few people I'm impressed with. Bill Clinton is one of them. Whether I would want as my wife says, whether I want my daughter to marry him, that's a different question.
But Trump also promoted that, I forget what it's called now, the first, it had to do with prison release for people who were in prison.
First offender.
I'm sorry?
First offender, no.
No.
Well, it had to do with drug.
People who were sent away to prison for questionable convictions and so forth. Or
by the way, he didn't promote it. He went along with it. It's been a Democratic.
I think he was right there promoting it.
Not really.
Well, again,
if you look at what was going on, he was going along with it. He wasn't fighting it, but he wasn't out there pushing it and trying to get.
You mean the three tries and you're out? Is that the one?
No, it's first strike. First strike.
Yeah.
It's first strike. I can't remember the name of it.
I think it was.
But he's taken on NATO. Trump has taken on NATO. They don't like it because they get their organization the way they want it to be, having our country paying 25% of the budget or whatever the number is. The same thing with the UN.
Yeah.
The UN has fought him. He's out there fighting them to get our representation proper. He's taken, and in spite of all these things, he's been getting harassed from day one by the Democrats and being challenged with this whole farce of impeachment, and all the way back from within a week of after he got elected.
But coming back to the NATO thing, I don't know whether the way the NATO is organized is structured differently than what Trump is telling us, actually, because the way the expenditures are supposed to be there, or financing of NATO is structured in such a way that the military budget is different than operational budget, and something entirely different. And so I don't know which portion of the budget Trump is advocating them to increase, rather than the military budget. I don't know that, but
I'm not sure either. But I think
it's
what
structured
we need to do
differently.
is maybe sometimes sit down with some of these subjects and be able to have more detail on them.
Right. One of the things to be aware of. Yes, we set up NATO. We set it up. Everybody else went along, and at the time, the other countries didn't have any choice. They were either going to be taken over by Russia or surrogates, or the United States basically was going to take them over, which they did. And in return for all the money, we got a tremendous amount of say. When someone goes and says, the basis of this thing is, anybody attacks you, they attack me, and then you say, well, maybe not, then you don't have friends. And yes, the United States can destroy the world like nobody else. The Russians can do a pretty good job at it, the Chinese, a whole bunch of people can do a pretty good job at it. But no one group can fix the world. You gotta have friends.
Yes.
And when, as with the Kurds, you say, thank you for your service, now go away and leave me alone, you don't have friends. And the next time somebody gets in your face and suddenly you look around and there's nobody standing with you, then it's too late. And that's what's wrong with NATO, with the NATO approach. Now maybe other countries should pay a little bit more. Okay, fine. I'll accept that. But when you tell them you're a waste, you shouldn't exist, when you have Russia resurgent, they're trying to get back to where they were, and the United States is saying, yeah, it's fine, good. We don't care. We can go by ourselves. Well, we can't, but we'll pretend we can, and then we don't find out until it's too late. You know the old song about you don't need a gun until you really need a gun? This applies.
The whole thing about NATO is that we have held the Russian front at a certain place because of NATO. And if we didn't have all the bases, all different places, Russia would have essentially taken over in a jiffy. And they would have taken over any of all of those countries. And just because U.S. essentially has extended its border from this ocean, east coast all the way to the Russian front, is an advantage, so that you are not only containing Russia, but all Russian power, but also you also have the advantage of an extended bunch of friends.
But you have to be able to count on these other countries to contribute what they can contribute, whether or not in physical manpower as well as financially.
Well, they have. They have, actually.
They have at times, but I'm not sure to what extent I'm not sure they're still fulfilling their share.
Well, by the way, Trump was not the only one to say, hey, people should contribute more.
Obama was also saying
and some of the other.
But I'm not sure they got any results.
It's not clear, even if you get a few more dollars, that you're any safer if the other people say, no, hey, this is your problem, you deal with it.
How many people? How many previous presidents said they were going to move to Jerusalem, to become the capital of Israel?
Which was a massive mistake.
You're saying it's a mistake.
It was a mistake because it's something that could have been negotiated, could have allowed some of the other things that Israel needs in order to survive to be part and parcel, and he just gave it away.
He gave it away. What do you mean he gave it away?
He said Jerusalem is now the capital. What that means in the Middle East is that the West Bank, Palestine, That's not. They have no piece of it. And you know what? They care about Jerusalem as much as Israel cares about Jerusalem, but he gave it away. So now there's less to be negotiated. Even if there is a Palestinian state, or Jordan expands, or whatever it turns out to be, Israel will be in a state of war for the foreseeable future because their neighbors they can't live with. What kind of a country would we be in if our neighbors, Canada and Mexico, were constantly trying to destroy us, trying to eliminate the United States? Mm-hmm. One of our major advantages is we live in peace. Maybe the rest of the world is screwing around, but we're okay. Mm-hmm. We're not rebuilding from mortar attacks or bombs, etc., constantly. Now, Trump has stuck Israel in the position that they will never be in peace.
So Benjamin Netanyahu. He
yes.
didn't agree with that?
No, Netanyahu did agree with that, but if you poll most of the Jews in Israel, they didn't agree with it.
That has been done? I haven't seen any statistics on that. I mean, I'm sure that must have been done.
Well, I can tell you that Netanyahu's party did not get a majority.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a reflection of
okay, but that's the most practical poll that we have. And I can also tell you that the Jews in the United States don't agree with that.
Because you also have to see that it was politically better for Netanyahu to have Trumps do this. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, general population in Israel knows what Middle East is like. So naturally, Netanyahu's popularity has dropped because
and also, by the way, Netanyahu has got his own problems for graft.
Yes,
and
that's
corruption.
A different issue.
And so he needed something special in order to survive.
Done. Yeah, I don't know, but I think that was in the works before.
He's been more or less under indictment for 4 or 5 years, and the rule there is the sitting prime minister cannot be indicted, so he has to stay in power. Trump is going to be in the same situation. The moment he's no longer president, there's a whole bunch of crimes that he's been accused of, alleged, that he will be indicted for. The moment somebody else takes the oath.
You know what's going to happen in a lot of ways, I think, is the fact that the Democrats have opened up this Pandora of its issues, and the next president, who's from the other party, the Republicans are going to come after them,
of course.
and this is going to be terrible for the country.
But they have always done that in the same way as
not
the
Republicans. Not to the extent this has been done.
I agree with that, but I can tell you that traditionally Republicans are in favor of limited taxation, limited spending, as long as there's a Democratic president. When there's a Republican president, they still like limited taxation, but they love to spend money, so the debt rises dramatically, and then when the Democrat gets in, he's forced to raise taxes, and the Republicans say, "See, what did I tell you?" Paying your debts is part and parcel of being an adult.
Well, one thing I was going to add to what you just said about that Democrats are going to. You said that Democrats, Trump is going to be pursued, but he's a smart person, and given that he's a smart person, and I say this to everybody actually, that it will not be possible to indict him, because I think he said it even during the campaign. While Hillary was saying, "See, he paid no taxes," and just standing behind it, he said, "That is smart," and he is smart. So as long as he has done things that way, there's no way they're going to touch him. They're going to be able to touch him.
Actually, I think we're going to find out in a couple of months whether he fraudulently did not pay taxes, and. What's going to happen, I think, is the next president who comes in, whoever the hell it is going to follow what he or she what Ford did with Nixon, pardon him.
Yes.
despite what Trump says, we don't want to go after the guy who was there before.
I mean, that would be a smart thing to do, to close the whole episode.
It could cost that president re-election, but it may be best for the country.
Now have any of you interacted with independent citizens?
I'm an independent.
I'm an independent citizen. I interact with myself.
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay, good.
I'm independent.
I interact with him. He's an independent
I'm
citizen.
listed as an independent.
See?
You're listed as independent, but you
I've never contributed any money to the Republican
Good.
Party.
See?
You never, but have you contributed any to the Democratic Party?
No.
No, so you just don't contribute.
Yeah, so that,
Chuck
and
is
that-
like me. We're both cheap.
yeah, I mean, that's why it's a good idea to interact with independent people. So here we are independent.